In this lesson, we'll discuss the Hotbox feature found in Maya. Okay, so this Hotbox is really just a feature that gives us almost immediate and quick access to pretty much every menu item that Maya has to offer. Now, to access this Hotbox, you can just press and hold the space bar to pull this up. Now, you may have seen me allude to this Hotbox just very briefly when we were discussing our lessons on how to quickly tap your space bar to jump between your views. Now, pressing and holding the space bar, again, will call up your Hotbox. Now, the Hotbox, again, starts to really kind of break itself down into a few different areas. We have our common menu items. We have really all of our modeling, animation, dynamics, and other menu items. And then we have some of these different zones that we can start to work with. Okay, so let's break this down a little bit more systematically. Let's try to simplify this. Let's go over to our Hotbox controls, and let's start by going down to Hide All. Okay, very nice. So now that will pretty much hide everything and make this much simpler for us to kind of start going through this. So press and hold the spacebar, and the first thing we have is kind of this central area right here. Now the spacebar, or this Hotbox, you'll notice will actually pop up wherever your cursor happens to be. Okay, so starting with this little central Maya box, if I press and hold on this, we can now choose between some different views of the viewport that we happen to be working in. So for example, if I wanted to switch maybe to a top view, there we are. Now we're in a top view. Now this is actually different from the view that we were looking at previously in one of our earlier lessons when we were talking about this view cube. By using the view cube in a perspective view, we were kind of cheating our way to getting this side view. But now you can see we're actually in a true top view. Now likewise, I can press and hold my spacebar again, click on Maya, and go back to perspective view. There we are. And what's nice is that this Hotbox is actually really fast to react. So if I know that I want to go to my top view, and I know the pattern, which is press and hold the spacebar, click, and then go over to kind of this 9 o'clock position, I can actually do this very quickly. So I can just tap, and you can see I can make that movement very quickly. Again, if I remember that my perspective view is up around this 12 o'clock position, I can again go through the sequence very quickly of just tap, click, and drag, and there we are. Now, within the Hotbox, we have these really 4 different zones, and these are split up into north, south, east, and west. Now, this north zone up here, that's really anything between these 2 little white bars. So anywhere that I click up in here, what this will allow us to do is actually change our entire layout. So right now I'm in a single perspective, but I could switch to maybe a perspective/relationship editor view. You can see once I click that, now we've actually changed this entire layout. If I click and hold and again go up to my north zone up here, we can go maybe to a perspective/graph view. And again, we completely change our layout. So this can be really nice for having multiple views open and being able to very quickly jump between these. These are some of the same tools that we can actually find, or some of the same layouts that we can find in this listing over here. Normally there would be a much longer list of these layout presets, but in my case, because I'm a little bit short on screen real estate, right now I can only just see this one, which is the single pane perspective, which again, it's the exact same button that we have right up here. Now down in the south region, this is where we can actually control what this particular viewport is displaying. So if I were to maybe go up to Outliner, you can see it changes my entire view to this Outliner. Now this works a little bit differently from this north region. So for example, if I were to go into my perspective/graph, you see it changes the entire layout. Now if I were to place my cursor down in this graph view, and again, press and hold the spacebar, go to my south region, and maybe set this to Outliner, you can see it only changes that view, or whichever view I happen to have my cursor in whenever I go down into this south region. Now again, if you choose, you don't necessarily have to go into your Hotbox to change whatever view you happen to be in. You can also do this by just going to Panels, go down to Panel, and you can also choose a view from this menu as well. So pretty much the exact same options that we have here. Now over in this west view, this is where we have our selection masks. Now the selection masks we won't get into too much in this lesson. We'll actually be talking about these in a lot more detail coming up in our next lesson. Now finally, over in this east view, or this east zone, this is where we can start to enable and disable certain UI elements. So let's start by just maybe going back to my single perspective, go back to my east zone, and I can start to disable things like the shelf. So you can see very quickly, turn that on or off. So again, a few of the elements that we can enable and disable from this UI elements checklist, which we looked at in one of our earlier lessons. Okay, so now let's take a look at some of the main areas of this hotbox. So let's start by going over to our hotbox controls, and let's turn on Show Common Menus. Okay, so now if we look up here across the top, we now see pretty much the common menus: File, Edit, Modify, Create, and so on and so forth. These are the menu items that do not change based on whatever module we currently have active. Okay, now if I were to come in and change to one of these other modules, what we should see is that all of a sudden our hotbox should now update. And what this will do is now display the specific items or the specific menus that relate to this current module. So if I were to go to animation, you can see now we have things like animate, geometry, create deformers, edit deformers, and so on. These are the exact same menu items that we now see along this bottom row of the hotbox. Okay, so we can continue to enable or disable these. Now, a really nice feature is the fact that maybe I'm in a situation where maybe I'm a modeler, right? And maybe I only need to work with some of the menu items found in polygons and surfaces. Well, at the moment, I'm going to have to do quite a bit of jumping back and forth between these. But what I could do is go into my hotbox controls, and you can see right now we do have our polygons enabled, but I could also go to Show Surfaces and tell the hotbox to also show and hide the surfaces menu. And now I have access to both of those, and I can start to work with all of the menu commands found within those two modules without actually having to jump back and forth between those. So really nice feature to have here. Now, just below this common menu, we also have the pane-specific menus. Now when I turn that on, you can see that now we have a new row of menus that appears just below this top menu. Now this row of menu items will correspond to whatever view we happen to be working in. So we have things like view, shading, lighting, and so on and so forth. These are the exact same menu items that we have right up here. Now these can actually change depending on which view we're in. So for example, if I go down to my south zone and switch to maybe an outliner, you can see we have display, show, and panels. Now if I call up my hotbox, we have display, show, and panels. Right, and the same should be true for really any view that we jump into. So finally, if we wanted to, we could actually enable or disable multiple menus by, again, just going into the hotbox controls and enabling or disabling menus that we do or don't want to see. We could also go ahead and just simply tell it to show all. And now we have access to all of these different menu items that would normally be spread across all of these different modules. So really the thing to keep in mind is that this hotbox really does not give us a special level of control. There really are not any menu items or options found in this hotbox that we couldn't just simply find anywhere else. Now instead what this is doing is giving us quick and easy access to a whole bunch of different menu items that normally we may have to go to half a dozen different places to find. So for the sake of our training, we usually don't rely on this hotbox because it does become a little bit more difficult for you to actually see maybe what I'm clicking on or where I'm going to get certain menu items. So for the sake of our training, you'll notice that we pretty much stick to these menus up here. However, for my day-to-day work and when I'm working on my own projects, I find myself using the hotbox almost exclusively. So once you get used to working with this hotbox, you'll find that it really is a very efficient way to work, and sometimes can be much easier and much less hunt and peck and searching for menu items compared to searching through some of these different modules until you find the actual menu that you're looking for. So that's a look at this hotbox feature found in Maya.